Pass me the torch, still blazing. Try to break my will so I won't change. I'm changing too much, but I can't keep still. Fight for the ones who saved me. I'm bleeding red like the ones we're saving. I'm not breaking. Catching up to the power I'm chasing.
Burn the earth tree to the ground. May chaos take the world. May chaos take the world.
I'm a virus, tell me if you notice. Cause I might get buried when the night gets long. 80 hours of out of focus. Top of this thorn in my side, I'm so gone. See me fly but never like to see me jet lagged. Hear the whisper on the wind, we're all alone. Bad fire on my back like a jetpack. Cause I don't wanna see the ash before it snows. Let me unravel. My arms are shattered, but I can't lose this battle. It's all I am. Pass me the torch, still blazing. Still blazing.
And we are live with another one here in the BC WrestlePod land. And welcome to another rendition of Los NXTilosos, the most stylish NXT review on the internet right now. I am one of your hosts, Mikey, and joined with me this evening is my partner in crime, my fellow Boricua himself, Mr. Macho Rodriguez. And love the hair down look. We about to get into business tonight.
That's right. This had to be let your hair down type of thing because we're talking NXT, and it's the most comfortable I feel just praising a promotion. This honestly felt like this was the real Halloween Havoc, and what we got on Sunday was the Tuesday night show. I don't know if that makes any sense. I hope I don't.
No, it does, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because literally the first thing that I wrote in my notes is just like just jumping straight into our first match too. By the end of it, I wrote, "Why did we not?" I was like, "Why does this feel more like a PLE than Halloween Havoc did on Sunday?" And by the end of the show, I'm just like, I'm impressed. This was an awesome show. I loved it, but I was also mad. I was just like, where was all of this on Sunday? Like, what happened? I feel like someone's got their hands in the pot, so to speak. And I was just like, something changed, because what we got at the PLE versus what we got tonight was crazy different in terms of everything. Absolutely. But man, I love this episode. I'm just going to bury the lead. I really love this episode. And I'm like, NXT, you redeemed yourself from Halloween Havoc and the Go Home show, which was not necessarily the best either. But this is now where it's just like, all right, the shot of adrenaline. Let's go. We got things to do. And I'm just here sitting here. I'm like, NXT, don't do this to me, because I was worried there for like a whole entire week. And then this show happened. But let's just get into it. So we will be reviewing the Tuesday, October 29th episode of NXT, which is coming to us from the Performance Center in Florida. And we opened up with a first ever females caskets match, which I was like, I thought we had some before, but I guess not when I went looking through it. But this is the first females casket match in NXT, and we had basically the final chapter of Tatum Paxley versus Wendy Chu. First of all, it is going to be Halloween themed, so this is where we're going to see a bunch of the people in costumes, which was a lot of fun. We had Tatum Paxley dressed up as Alice from, Alice Returns, video game character, crazy Alice in Wonderland, fantastic. And then I have a soft spot for The Nightmare Before Christmas. So Wendy Chu coming out as Sally. I was just like, my heart.
I am a massive Nightmare Before Christmas fan. That is one of my all-time favorite movies. I am so glad that I was able to introduce that to my daughter. That is her. Jack Skellington is her, she's 2. That is her buddy. She believes that she doesn't even know the name of the movie. She says, I want to watch Halloween. I want to see Jack. That's what she says. I love that movie. I love Sally. I don't know if you've ever heard Sally's song before, but Amy Lee did a rendition of that song, and it is
so
just
good.
And honestly, Billie Eilish just did the same thing. I know we're going to jump into a tangent here talking about this Nightmare Before Christmas, but just wanted to talk. I love that movie, love it. Tim Burton wrote the poem. He didn't really direct the film. Let's just get that out the way. Just want to make sure people know that. I know that's Jay Stubbs' job to tell the world, but I'm gonna steal that from her right now. So
no, and see, this is stuff that I love because we've known each other, but this is really, now that we're working with each other on a consistent basis, I'm excited to learn more about you, and I hope vice versa as well, because I love Nightmare Before Christmas. It's one of my favorite Halloween and Christmas movies. Yes, I will watch that thing at Christmas. You can't tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
It's also a Christmas movie.
Absolutely.
I have just a triad of classics between that, Coraline, and then Frankenweenie is always my favorite too. I love Frankenweenie.
That's a great movie too.
We're talking about great movies, but this was a fantastic match. Holy crap. I kind of wish we got this on Halloween Havoc. This was amazing. Yeah. Both women did amazing. I love the dollhouse spot. It was so great. We got Legos. This was just fun. We had a broken bed frame too. And just both of them just went all out, and ultimately Tatum Paxley walks out the winner of this feud. I think this is pretty much it between Tatum and for Wendy, but my goodness, this was one hell of a way to open up the show this week. I loved every minute of it.
Absolutely. Honestly, I felt this has to be the finale of the feud. You can't have a casket match and then keep going after that.
Correct.
The casket match is fine. You know what I mean? It is final. And I am so glad that Tatum and Wendy got this opportunity to go out there and have the first ever on an NXT format. I think it showed maybe the people on the main roster. It showed people in AEW. It showed people in NWA, in TNA, it showed people in Japan that, hey, women can be the first. They can have the first, but to give this to them, the way Tatum's character is, I didn't know who her character was. I didn't know she was a different version of Alice in Wonderland. I just knew that she looked phenomenal. I loved all of the stuff that she did. I've been a big fan of Tatum. I loved the entire match itself, and I gotta say, I am such a fan of the Kofi Kingston spots. I love when he does the Rumble, the creative ways to stay in the Rumble. He did it. Bianca Belair did it. And that's what I felt like. It was the first place that my mind went to when she stopped the casket from closing with a pillow. I was like, me cago en la madre. This is what I'm talking about. The creativity. Yes, we had the dollhouse. Yes, we had the Legos. But to me, that was the spot of the night. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I also got a kick out of Wendy Chu, go to sleep into Tatum, into the casket, door closes, it opens back up, and then we get the close-up of both of them just yelling at each other. this was just pure camp, and I love this. And again, I felt like we could have got this at Halloween Havoc, and this would have been a really fun match. But Tatum picks up the win. I'm excited to see what's next for both women, but I'm excited to see where Tatum goes from here.
Absolutely.
Then, NXT does a really good job of recapping Halloween Havoc in what I call the cinematic masterpiece, where they put cool little filters and nice things on it to, recap what happened at Halloween Havoc. I'm like, NXT, you do this all the time. I was like, you hype this up, and let's be real. One of us was there live. One of us watched it at home, and this was okay at best, but you made it look like every match was amazing. I didn't hate Halloween Havoc. I was just very underwhelmed with some of it. But speaking of Halloween Havoc, we get, one of the contestants that was in our main event come out next, Mr. Willy Wonka himself. He is the Chocolate Factory, according to his Twitter, Trick Williams. And, he cuts his promo in the middle of the ring. He talks about the Devil's Playground match he had with, All Ego Ethan Page. He is still the champ, but now he has a bone to pick with Ridge because Ridge attacked him after the match, which, I was like, don't remind me. But then Trick calls out one person, and he owes a thank you to Bubba Ray Dudley. And I just sat here with my eyes rolled so hard in the back of my head. I'm like, all right, let's get this over with. I was like, Bully Ray. Oh, sorry, he can't use that name here in WWE. But Bubba Ray comes out, and, he gives Trick his props. And he answers Trick's question of why nobody came out to save him. It's because Trick is the champion. When you're the champion, nobody's going to come and save you because that championship basically paints a target on your back, and everybody is watching for an opening to take it from you. So Trick says he needs to get even and get a lick back from Ridge and All Ego Ethan Page. So he needs a tag team partner. He gets Bully Ray's juices flowing, so to speak. But Bully says no. And I'm just like, okay. Everyone was like, boo. And I saw some people online. I was like, that sucks. Who's going to be Trick's partner? And I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, I have watched enough wrestling, ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary folks of the internet. I know where this is going. And sorry to bury the lead, but when we get, what happens later with Ethan Page during his promo and Ridge and Bubba Ray and Trick coming out, setting up Trick and Bubba versus Ridge and Ethan next week at the ECW Arena show. I'm like, are we that surprised, you guys? Like, no. I am very indifferent about this. I have said on multiple occasions, especially on my TNA reviews, how I personally feel about Bubba Ray Dudley, aka Bully Ray, and his stances on wrestling, the industry, and his stances when it comes to certain things like women's wrestlers and all of that. This is fine. This is fine. I know the crowd loves him. I have my personal vendettas, but I push that to the side. But this is fine. And, Macho, I want to get your thoughts about this before I pose a question, because I had this interesting conversation during the Halloween Havoc review on Monday. But, I mean, how do you feel about Trick teaming up with Bubba next week?
I mean, I'll say out of the TLC trio, the Dudleys were my least favorite team. I've never been the biggest Dudley fan. I'll be honest with you. I loved the Aces and Eights, Bully Ray. I thought that was cool, but never been a fan. I used to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning to watch, when I lived in Jersey with my dad, to watch ECW on MSG channel, now the Yes Network, to watch that show. And I just remember watching them, and I'm not excited about it. I don't know how this benefits Trick. I think this is just done because they're playing up the ECW. Like, oh, it's Philly, it's the ECW arena. But I'll be honest with you, there are so many more people I would think of. And I don't know, Bubba's kind of just been sitting there at a desk, talking just like we are. You're not going to take one of us off. And I was watching him throw punches. I honestly thought to myself, I was like, man, no. Like, you look slower than Ric Flair looked, and he fell asleep in his last match. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's wild. Like, you can't tell me that. Like, come on, man. Like, you couldn't find any other ECW original. Tajiri's still working. RVD's still working.
Which
Like,
we'll talk about him in a little bit.
Yeah, like, what's going on here? Like, I don't know. I think it's just to build a relationship with Busted Open.
You know, I would not be surprised if that's it. But then this poses my question. So on Monday, myself and one of my WWE co-hosts, Evan, Minnie, the two of us got to talking, and I posed this question because I thought it was interesting. Because with Trick retaining, this is the third time that he's faced All Ego for this championship. And normally the rule of three states that since Ethan couldn't recapture it, then we're done. Like, everyone's going to move on to the next thing. So it seems that we're setting up Trick and Ridge to be a filler feud until we get to where we want to next. Do you think that the men's division, specifically in NXT, do you think we have a heel problem? Because outside of Ridge and Ethan Page, there's not a lot of heels for Trick to go up against for this championship. So do you think we have a problem, or am I overreacting just a tiny bit?
I think we have a problem.
Okay.
I think the problem is the women. The women run the show. They are the most interesting thing. It's the best women's division in all of professional wrestling. And I think that Triple H knows that. Shawn Michaels knows that. I think the people that do creative, they realize it. Like, we're going to talk about the women later. We're going to talk about that 10-person showdown later. And when I look at it, I think to myself, if I were booking, I would have had Charlie or Gene Wilder Jr. I would have had him lose the Heritage Cup and move him into that spot, because in my opinion, he's the best worker on the brand right now. And that's kind of where you have to go. You have Javon, you have Wes. They have the right people, and Wes is a really shitty heel, which works. But yeah, I think without Ethan Page, there's nobody that's worth giving that shot to.
Right. And, when we think about the other heels that are in NXT, they're all out on injury. Like, Noam Dar is still hurt. Like, because I know that was what we were building to at first, because it was going to be Noam and Trick going at it for a little bit, which I would have been here for. But he's out on injury. Who knows where Josh Briggs is, because last we checked, he was in Japan, and now I don't know if he's injured or what. So he's off the table. Obafemi looks like he's about to be moved to main roster if the reports are true that he was saying his goodbyes to everybody in the locker room at Halloween Havoc in NXT. So that kind of writes him out. I agree with you. I felt that Charlie Dempsey outside of Ethan and Ridge would be interesting, but then I think Charlie would be a fun thing, despite our friend Will's not liking of Charlie. You also have two other members that, Trick would need to go through and have to deal with in Miles Bourne and my personal favorite of the group, Tavion Heights. I think Tavion's fantastic. Yeah, I'm glad that I'm not crazy in my assumption that we're running into a heel problem for the men's division, because the women's division, we got problem. Well, here's the thing. Our main championship scene for the women's division in NXT has a lot of challengers, but you also have a lot of challengers in the women's North American scene too. There's a lot for the main title and the mid-card title too. And the fact that we don't have any for the men's main division, but we have a lot for the North American and the Heritage Cup for the men, is kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those crazy things where I wonder if they're just playing into it. Like, they know they have a problem on that side. But if I could just say one thing before we move on, Shawn Michaels did an interview a couple of weeks ago where he talked about how there's still another surprise to be had. We don't know what we're getting. And he said it's not just... Now, he said it in the reverse, but I'm wondering if they feel like the male they're bringing in is going to be a bigger star than Zarya. and Julia and Stephanie, because he said we still have more to come. And then he said it's men and women. Now we've gotten the trio, right? We've gotten Zarya, we've gotten Julia, we've gotten Stephanie, but we haven't gotten the male yet. We have not been introduced to a new superstar. So maybe in Philly, we finally get that. Or the other thing, which I'd like to run by you quick, is they've done this before where they've pulled someone from the main roster. Remember, when they didn't have anything to do with Finn Balor, he was sent back to NXT to kind of like, sure things back up.
That
So I wonder if there's somebody coming, huh?
That run was a lot of fun for me.
Oh, absolutely. Came back down. Yeah, his entire NXT run from his day signing to when he finally left and hasn't been back. Finn Balor in NXT is like perfection. Whether it's the babyface, whether it's the tweener, whatever he is, he's perfection. But I wonder if maybe, we have a main roster person go back down and just kind of be like, let's see what happens.
Right. And, I don't know how it'll work out, but there's also reports too, because it didn't happen, but there's a whole lot of talent both on Raw and SmackDown that we could have them come over to NXT, because I don't like using the term come down to, because I feel like NXT is just as exciting, if not more exciting, than Raw and SmackDown sometimes.
Yes.
But you can also have these main roster folks who come over and work with, our talent down here. So, I mean, shoot, we're not I haven't seen Shinsuke in forever, so Shinsuke could be fun. I love a Shinsuke Nakamura.
Oh.
Shinsuke and NXT with this current landscape would be amazing. Like, I'm not going to lie.
Listen, I cannot tell you. I did a show on Monday night after wrestling, and somebody jumped into my chat, and I actually clipped it so you could see it on the YouTube channel. But he asked specifically, he kind of gives me this like prediction, and I loved it. And his prediction was that Cody Rhodes is going all the way through to Backlash 2025 as champion. He's dropping the championship to Shinsuke Nakamura. And I was like, this is an off-the-wall thing, but mira papi, I want it to happen. So if maybe that was like just an off-the-wall thing, but hey, man, if like I love yours, I love it better this way, because you bring Shin back to NXT, it gives him something to do, and he's a 2-time NXT champion. He's had banger feuds with Sami Zayn, Samoa Joe, like Andrade. Like, give this man, but like Trick Williams, I think he can take a guy like him can take Trick to the next level.
Right. And then Shinsuke has an opportunity to work with pretty much anybody in this men's division, from a Trick to a Ridge to Ethan versus Shinsuke would be very interesting. And I would love to see their prowess go at it. But then, even if it's just for a one-off, like a Javon versus Shinsuke, a West versus Shinsuke has me super excited too.
Oh, yeah.
But Shinsuke is just that good. And let's have him come over to NXT and work with these men for a little bit. And I'm all here for it. But I have gone on record to state that I trust Shawn Michaels' vision for NXT. Like, we have a couple bumps in the road, but he never has steered me completely off the road. So I'm going to hold on to see what we have in store, and we'll see what happens with that. So backstage, really quickly, we have Mr. Perfect 10, formerly known as Ty Dillinger himself, Sean Spears, with Brooks Jensen. And they are about to go in to talk to Tony to see if they can get a shot at the North American Championship. Miss Rizzo is ready to get a lick back, so we'll see and talk about her a little bit later. But as Sean kind of, starts the conversation to ask for a shot, we have the rest of the family come in and say, Tony, we have something to deal with on the phone. Tony asks Sean and Brooks to leave. They leave. And then we hear this voicemail on the phone saying that, when Tony comes, this is not how we do business, Tony, and is not happy of what's been going on. So next week, they're going to deal with Tony. So I'm just like, what is about to go down next week in Philly? Like, what is about to happen?
Oh, I think we're going to get the FBI.
I think so too. I was like, oh gosh, here we go.
Yeah, I think we're going to get the FBI, and I think it's going to be the opposite of what people think. I think people are going into it thinking, oh, they're going to betray Tony and it's going to be Goodfellas style. I think they're going to make him a made man next week. I think he's going to be a made man. Like it's like, here, we're in Philly. This is like, where Rocky is, like, the statue and everything like that. That's why I think we're going.
I'm interested to see what's about to go down, which then leads us into our second match of the evening. This is for the NXT Heritage Cup. Mr. Willy Wonka himself, Charlie Dempsey, defending the championship against, Lexus King with William Regal in his corner. I'm just like, Regal, I love you so much. I miss your on-screen presence on my screen. He's one of the few people I don't care, have him on there. So the match itself. So one positive is I do like that this continues to progress the Lexus King into something more than what we've seen him to do, into this nice guy character. I just wish he doesn't keep losing. And here's the other thing, and Macho, you can tell me I'm wrong and I'm okay with that, but I have a personal pet peeve. I don't like when we're watching matches and wrestlers, play into, oh, I have an injury. So normally I can tell when it's a work and I'm like, okay, whatever. But nah, Lexus King, you did me dirty, bro. I'm sitting here. I'm like, I swear if you are actually hurt, I'm going to be pissed. I'm like, I never like wrestlers playing with me when it comes to that. I know they're supposed to work me over, but I also, because when I see that, for me personally, and this is just a me thing, sometimes it takes me out of what I'm watching. And I'm like, oh no, now I'm worried that he's actually hurt and he's going to damage himself. It is what it is. But outside of that, the match itself, I thought it was okay. I like the development because when Regal passed him the nuts and he didn't want to do it, it's like, I'm not like my father. And then I'm just like, I'm cool for a character direction. At least we have a direction. But can we have Lexus King stop losing? Because it doesn't help him evolve as a character. If he's constantly losing, I'm like, what is this? Kurt Hawkins? I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, this man is starting to get that record. Like, what is going on?
Listen, I'm going to hold my emotional octopus here. I don't understand that I'm not like my father. I'm 40.
Okay, thank you. This is so weird because I'm like, okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm 40 years old. I grew up with his father. I grew up watching Flying Brian Pillman in WCW. What version of your dad are you talking? When did your dad ever cheat to win? Even when he was with the Hollywood Blondes with Steve Austin, he wasn't like, he was a heel, but he didn't really do that stuff. What are you talking about? Like, what character are you trying to portray Mr. Pillman as? That's just not who he was. He was a massive babyface in WCW. He was a heel for a hiccup. He was a hiccup. Austin talks about it all the time. He comes to WWE as the loose cannon, and he barely wrestled. He was pretty much a background character. He did, the 5-on-5 Survivor Series, the Canadian Stampede match. But, like, he worked Austin. They had, like, the gun, at the house and stuff, like, all that. But, like, your dad, are you saying that your dad would have taken those brass knuckles? Like, what are we talking about? What are you trying to convince the world of? You're gaslighting people is what you're doing, bro.
Bro, okay, so Macho, let's talk about this really quickly because lest we forget, when Lexus debuted at Halloween Havoc last year, the vignettes we were getting, again, it was that I'm not like my father, but it was taking the path of I'm not going to live in his shadow. I'm my own person. I was like, cool, that's interesting. But then when he debuts, we get this Guns N' Roses like knockoff. And I was like, okay, this is not what I envisioned. But you know what? Hey, if he's going to be full sleaze bag, somebody has to do it. And then like then he was weirdly involved in like the Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes thing when we're trying to figure out who attacked everybody. And it would have been an interesting twist if it was. We wasted a PLE pay-per-view slot to have Carmelo and Lexus go at it to find out that he wasn't involved in any shape or form, but he used Carmelo to get the rub, which I was like, okay, that's dirty. But, I would have been here for it. And then nothing for months. Like we had nothing to do. Then he turned into a chauvinistic pig, which is what Ashante the Adonis is right now. And then, I thought him and Eddie Thorpe were going to have something because I love Eddie. Listen, he may not be on my screen that often, but me and Will love Eddie Thorpe. And despite some problematic stuff, at least we got something of interest with him and Dijak when they were feuding towards the end of last year. Like, I actually really like that. And the fact that, of course, as, POC host, I love watching Eddie incorporate his Native American heritage into his wrestling and to his entrance and everything. Fantastic. But then that feud went nowhere. And then we kind of just had Lexus just be coasted. And then now we get his nice guy character, like overly nice. I was like, please don't turn him into the naive baby face. I'm like, nah, no. I don't mind him being a nice guy character because it can work if you have the right dimensions to it. But I'm not going to believe Lexus King the babyface if you keep presenting him as somebody who keeps losing these big matches like this. Like, oh, it's so frustrating. Now, granted, I'm not the biggest fan of Lexus, but I'm tired of seeing him lose these big matches, and then you want me to care. Give me something to care about, as I channel Will in this. Give me something to care about is all I'm asking.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
This match was fine. I thought it was exactly what it needed to be. Charlie needs to be the superior guy. Like, Lexus should not win this match, and I love that it was a confusion with him and Regal, and I think it's just my brain just fuming right here, like trying to figure this out. I wonder if Lexus King is like going away. If Regal is here to bring out the Pillman, because maybe maybe that's the character. Maybe that's the choice where I tried so much to be the opposite of my father. And in reality, I'm the second coming because his father wasn't able to accomplish like more things. His dad is a former cruiserweight champ, tag champ, television champ. But like, what if you're meant for more, bro? What if you're meant to be the North American champ? What if you're meant to be the NXT champ? What if you're meant to be Intercontinental champion, United States champion, future world heavyweight champ? Like, what if you're meant to take your father's legacy and pull a Cody Rhodes? Like, what if that's his job? He's still young. He's a baby. Like, I just wonder if that's where we're going.
I hope so. I would love to see Regal kind of take the character off screen for a little bit, have him be repackaged, and have Regal manage him or in some capacity help him, like in like storyline purposes to get there. Because I would be here for a rebrand, and I think Lexus Keens needs to shift in direction too. If we want him, if he is going to be a main staple of NXT at some point, I think a rebrand is definitely in order. We then get a video on Lola Vice versus Jada Parker. We were told that next week at the ECW arena show is going to be Lola versus Jada in a hardcore match. And Dawn Marie is going to be the special guest referee. I was like, this is going to be fun.
Yep.
And I will say, I'll just put this here too. Jada Parker's pre-tape promo where she's sitting amongst all the weapons and she's cutting this promo against Lola. I was just like, Miss Jada Parker, ma'am, you have so much charisma oozing out of you. Like, ooh, I love her so much. I was like, she's just authentically herself. I believe, like, this ain't a character. This is Jada Parker. Like, she will throw hands at anybody and everyone, and this is just who she is. She about to get down, and I was just like, Jada, I believe you. Good job, because that is what I need when it comes to these characters. I'm excited for this match. Just let's not do any shenanigans. Let's just have Lola and Jada beat the tar out of each other. And I think it's going to be fun. Now, I was one of the few people that like Jada's match against Mia in like towards the tail end earlier this year when they had a street fight. Mm-hmm. I love that match. I thought it was great. So Jada and Lola, this is going to be fun. But then we have the in-ring debut of Ms. Zarya. And shout out to Brinley Reese and her double jointedness, but making it look like her arm popped out of its socket in the middle of this match. Beautiful. I'm just like, that's that gymnast double like joint in there, man. Like, it's so much fun. Like, I loved it when Alexa did it, and I love it here even too. Like, the women's wrestlers who are former gymnasts and are double jointed. I love that they're able to just naturally make it look like, oh, their arm got ripped out of the socket. And then just watching Zarya pick it up and pull her up to pull it back into place was just a thing of beauty. Man, this was fun. This was a match that went the way it was supposed to. It was the perfect length. This is essentially a squash match, but shout out to Brindley for, hamming it up a little bit to make Zarya look like a monster.
Listen, I just want to state this. Zarya she's different. This is different because we are lucky enough to have Rhea Ripley, the Australian powerhouse, the consummate seller, the ability for her to make others look good. How she even made Candice LeRae look like a threat in 3 minutes. How she made Indy Hartwell look like a phenomenal wrestler in like 4.5 minutes. What she's able to do. There is something in the water in Australia because listen, whatever's going on over there, I watched her and I thought the same thing I thought about Stephanie and Julia. Like, they don't belong on this roster. Like, I'd move them up now. I'd move them over to Raw or SmackDown now. Like, I think Zarya's character right now can sell so much merch. And I know that's a different part of wrestling and people don't like to have that conversation, and I get it. But guys, the face paint, the hair, the gear, the entrance, the little girls that will dress like her. And if I could just say one thing, when I was coming up, when I was like training early, I remember that there is something you're supposed to do out of respect to to previous superstars. And I didn't work long enough to have the luxury to do something like this. But I know we've heard the story from Randy Orton, where he said Austin Theory was going to use a form of the RKO. He was going to do the TKO, which was Marvelous Mark Mero's finisher. He was going to do that. Or Alex Riley, if you want somebody closer to our time. He was going to do it, and he contacted Randy to ask him. Now, he wound up doing it so he doesn't drops you on your knee. It looks stupid. You probably should have done it the other way. But the moment I saw Zarya hit the F5 at Halloween Havoc, I was like, she had to have made that phone call. She had to have either contacted Paul or she called Saskatchewan and she called and asked Brock. And the fact that she's doing it, to me, means that she got the okay. And I have been waiting for a female wrestler to do the F5. That is my all-time favorite finishing move. It is so brutal. I remember when SmackDown versus Raw came out. That was the finisher that I gave myself in the game. And it was always the one where you go from here to throw it up and then hit the F5, the one he did on Undertaker No Mercy 02. Man, she hits it so clean. It looks beautiful when she does it. Her spear looks brutal. Her German suplex looks deadly. Like, I just want more. I want more. And I bet you, Mikey, if we signed off here, or if when people stop listening to our show, I bet you, if you go on YouTube right now, she's probably one of the most searched athletes. People are looking for her former film right now. Like, oh, I need to see what else Delta did. I need to see it. And that's what I saw yesterday. I wanted more. I didn't think that was a long enough match. I wanted more. That's how good she is.
What's crazy to me is the fact that also, because it's a full circle moment, that throughout the independents and stuff like that, Delta, who is Zarya in NXT, but she has worked with Rhea. She's worked, it's just a full circle moment with there's like a 6 degrees of connection between Zarya and Rhea, Zarya and Finn to some extent, and even Zarya to Becky and Lyra too. Like, that whole entire squad I just named, I'm just like, and then, she also has some connection to like Kyrie and Io in some capacity too. Like, it's just a great circle of people to work with and be trained with. So like, I'm super excited, but then what we got after this, woo! Okay. I got the sweats are coming in. I gotta calm
It
myself
was
down a little bit.
beautiful.
Oh my gosh, like I've been screaming that I need just like balls of the wall craziness, and NXT gave me this because first we have Fatal Influence come out.
Mhm.
They're upset that their spotlight got stolen at Halloween Havoc when Zarya thrashed him.
Mhm.
Then we have Cora and Roxanne come in, and it's looking like a 5-on-1. And I'm just sitting here. I was just like, I know we're gonna get the rest of the Avengers coming out, but like, let's be real. Zarya can manhandle everybody in this ring right now if she really wanted to. But then, the Avengers do come out. The person I was kind of like surprised, but like in the best way, Kalani is the first to answer in her Spider-Gwen inspired gear. I was like, yes, ma'am. But, which makes sense because she's got beef with Fallon, so that's perfect. Then, of course, we have Stephanie and Julia come out. So then it's a 4-on-5, and Roxanne was like, that's fine. 4-on-5 works with me. And just out of nowhere, but it kind of makes sense because of what happened at Bound for Glory. So she's not going to be busy for the next 2 weeks or whatever because of the taping schedule too. Miss Mama Pump herself, the Juggernaut Jordan Grace, comes out, and it is officially a 5-on-5. When I tell you that still shot of the faces and the heels in the ring together before Chaos brings out, I'm like, that is thumbnail money right there. That is money shot right there. And then the brawl begins to happen, and I'm just like, well done, Shawn Michaels. And then when we come back from commercial, next week at the ECW show, we are getting a 10-woman tag. Cora, Roxanne, Fallon, JC, and Jasmine versus Jordan Grace, Stephanie Vicker, Julia, Zarya, and Kalani Jordan. I'm just like,
yep.
I'm like, this match is about to feed families, the world, the community. Like, woo!
My one gripe with this should have closed the show.
Honestly, but then that means you would have to put Nikita and Kalani, and I don't feel like that match is worth the main event. But it is what it is.
I agree. I think Delta or Zarya should have closed the show as her debut should have been the end of the show. That's what I'm saying. That's what we should have gotten. Because later on, there was just really nothing of substance the rest of the show. Like, it was great. The rest of the show's good and it's fine. But I felt like this was like the peak.
This was the sweet spot. Yep.
Yeah.
Man, I was so excited. And we'll talk about it a little bit. So really quickly, we do get a match after this. Kalani Jordan versus Nikita Lyons. Spider-Gwen versus, captain of the Black Armada, if you will, because Nikita was dressed up as a pirate. This was a pretty short match. And this, shout out to Kalani for picking up the win. And, earlier I talked about Adriana Rizzo. I guess, without verbally saying this, Nikita was the one that attacked Adriana, I guess, backstage. So, okay. But I love Adriana. She's like, hold my earrings, and then jumps into the fight. I was just like, listen, I am a person that believes in honor and, good sportsmanship in fights, but I'm also messy. And I love a good hold my earrings moment. The match itself was fine. I'm happy Kalani gets the win. So it seems that we're going to build her up going up against Fallon once again at some point for the title. But Adriana versus Nikita is not a feud that I'm looking forward to, and nothing against the women. But I was like, it's like what you said, that this feud is like nothing of substance to it. So I'm just like, all right, well, that was the thing that I saw. So there we go.
Yeah. I don't know. I have so many glowing things to say about the women's roster, and I can't come up with a single one to say about Nikita Lyons.
And that is fair.
I don't want, if you got nothing nice to say, don't say it at all, right? That's the adage, right? Here's the problem, Mikey. I got nothing to say. I don't feel any way about
indifference, man. Indifference is the worst thing as a wrestling fan.
Yeah,
For reals.
I don't get it. I'm just not. I'm like, all right, like, okay, like the way I think about it, if you got like you put my feet to the fire and I have to give you an opinion, she's there for a specific demographic of wrestling fan. That's how I look at it. Because I don't see any wow in the ring. I don't hear any wow on the mic. I mean, but everything else is there. You know what I mean? Everything else fits like what they want, and
Right.
that's kind of how I feel. Where it's like, okay, like you're here, like we still need to have that, like and I get it, I understand it. It's just in a in a in a time of professional wrestling when the women are above and beyond better than anything that we're getting from the rest of the roster. I think this is one of those like it's just not needed. It's just not needed right now.
Right. But we discussed it. We're moving on. We already talked about Bully Ray with Ethan and Ridge and setting up with what we're getting next week, so we don't have to divulge that any further. So then we cut backstage where we have, the homie squad of Jordan and Stephanie and Julia, Kalani and Zarya of all of them. And we're seeing where the next couple of weeks are going to go with feuds, which I'm not opposed. And then we have a Rhea Ripley just popping in out of nowhere, telling the women to blow the roof off the place. And I'm just like, oh, Rhea, I love you. I love you so much. Which then, after again, we already talked about the Jada video, because then backstage we have Ava and Robert Stone and Stevie Turner, and we see Eddie Thorpe come into frame for 5 seconds before everybody starts running outside. As the camera is following the refs as they're running, we just briefly see a Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan twirling their like kendo sticks, if you will. And they're just walking by, and as the camera pans around the open car door, we see literally Rhea Bloody Ripley just laid out on the floor. She is just destroyed. And so this is where we're going to bring this up, because a report dropped today that Rhea is out for an undisclosed amount of time because she has a broken orbital, which is, anybody who knows the human anatomy, that's not a fun thing to have, broken and damaged, especially since, the orbital bone is part of the cavity in which your eyeball is sat in. So I'm just like, no, Rhea, we just got you back. Not another injury, but hey, you know what? And even though this is not a main roster show, for me personally, I was like, okay, now we're getting more heat on Raquel and Liv because, Rhea's going to be out. Her return at the Rumble is going to be amazing, but I don't have her as the winner. I'm still rooting for my girl Naomi to win this thing. But I was just like, you know what? If we're gonna like propel main roster storylines in NXT, I feel like small ways like this is how we do it. They do not need a whole segment. And I was just like, now you have me intrigued to see, all right, I guess I got to tune in to next week to see how we're going to talk about this, I guess, which, I say it like that, but I'm actually excited. I'm like, you have me intrigued. You have my attention, WWE. Good job.
I said this on a video before we jumped on the pod here. This is a blessing in disguise for Liv Morgan, because right now, the discourse around these two is that Liv is just a stepping stone for Rhea. That's Rhea's side. But then Liv's side is she needs Rhea. Well, guess what, guys? She doesn't have Rhea anymore. Rhea's officially out of the picture. Now, you have to be the star. She has to be the person. There's no Becky. There's no Charlotte. And Tiffany's not going to jump over and feud with you, because we know for certain Tiffany's going to take that championship from Nia. Now this puts Liv in a spot where you have to carry the Raw brand as the champ now. Now she has the opportunity to actually showcase her full abilities, because this is never going to work. It's never going to work out better for her. An injury of this magnitude, leaving Rhea out until the end of January. If that's, she may not come back for the Rumble. She may win the Elimination Chamber. Like, that might be her ticket to WrestleMania. And that could be what happens. But I love this so much. I don't love that Rhea's actually injured. I loved last night. I loved the angle. I was like, yes, like, Rhea's out. That's good. Now we can have Liv just go be what you want to be. But this worked out, and I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be great. I love that Liv Morgan immediately tweeted a picture of Rhea Ripley, like, bloody, in the driver's seat of the car, like right outside, and her quote was "Rhea Bloody Ripley." Loved it. Thought it was great. Rhea has already tweeted back and said, "Your mistake was you should have killed me. Your mistake was you left me breathing." So Rhea's gone for a little bit. Her return is going to be insane. It's going to be insane. And now Liv has the opportunity to get that heat. This is great. Somebody actually said to me earlier today, what a great unplanned way to have people from the main roster pay attention to NXT. Because now you don't know when main roster talent's going to pop up. So the ratings are going to go up, but you know who this helps the most? The talent on NXT. Because now people won't make comments like, "Oh, I don't know who that is." Because if you're watching NXT because you don't know when a main roster person is going to pop up, now you're going to be paying attention. You might fall in love with a brand new star. There might be people that come over to NXT that didn't even know it, and they like a Charlie Dempsey. They come to NXT and they like a Trick Williams. They like an Ethan Page. Like, they're ready for those guys to move on. This was beautiful. I loved the unplanned segment and everything.
I loved it so much, and this definitely is going to have me tuning in this upcoming week, which then leads us into the only thing left. Well, two things to talk about, but we're pretty much in the home stretch now. So this leads us into our main event of the evening. This is for the NXT Tag Team Championships. So this is Fraxium, so Nathan Frazier and Axiom, the champions, taking on the challengers of Cedric Alexander and Mr. Bouncy himself, Javon Evans. So I'm going to be honest. I knew Fraxium wasn't going to lose. Also, I think I might just be me, but this will they, won't they breakup of Nathan and Axiom is kind of getting old. We've been playing the same tune for a couple months now. Either break them up or have them get over the problems. I know that sounds really hardcore of me to say, but like, stop with the tease. Either let it happen or let it don't. Like, will they, won't they is getting old. What I will say, though, is that I love Cedric Alexander in the ring. I need him on my screen more. But what I loved anymore is that Wes comes out and Javon's like, nah, forget this tag team title match. I'm mad at you. Let's fight. And just like decks Wes, and then they get pulled to the back to brawl. Meanwhile, Cedric is by himself, and he ends up taking the pin here. So Cedric turning on Javon is going to be happening another day. I thought this was fun, but like we said earlier, I feel like Zarya should have been in this main event, have this, and then have the women staring off be what closes the show to get me to be like, all right, I got to tune into the special Wednesday NXT show next week because election season is here. And I feel like we're all going to need a mental vacation after what transpires next week, but that's neither here nor there. Macho, this is what closed the show before we get into our last bit with the backstage stuff. How did we feel about this tag team championship match?
It was fine. I have been taken out of it by the whole will they, won't they. I'm not a fan of it. I just to voice this to people, I'm a big fan of television. I love TV. I love procedurals. I love comedy shows. I love rom-coms, all types of movies. Like, you recommend a movie, recommend a TV show, I'm going to watch it. Right now, before we jumped on air, I was on Netflix watching Interview with the Vampire. Hadn't seen it yet. I saw the original movie. I just started watching the show. I just finished watching Discovery of Witches. Loved it. And I was like, oh, let me jump into Interview with the Vampire. That's how excited I am for like a new show. I never in my life enjoy the trope of will they, won't they. I grew up a Friends fan. I watched it from 1994 when I was 10 years old until 2004 when I watched the finale before I had to go to work my overnight job. I remember loving that show. I hated the Ross and Rachel will they won't they thing. Hate it. To this day, I can't say it's my favorite show of all time because I hate that. I don't like it. So I don't like it with Fraxium. Not a fan of it. Not at all. Don't want to see it. I don't want to see that shit in professional wrestling. Like, either put people together or not. The last time a will they won't they worked was Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. Don't do it again. Leave it alone. You know, and I'm just not a fan of it. It took away from Javon and Cedric, who are phenomenal entertainers. These are 4 brilliant workers. And we're more concerned on who's going to betray the other person. Like, to me, it just feels like they didn't value what this could have meant for Javon and Cedric. You know, that's kind of what I felt like. They left it up in the air, but they didn't leave me with questions. They left me with annoyances.
I love that. I'm gonna start using that term. They didn't leave me with questions, to leave me with annoyances. But I get it, because I'm just like, just either have them continue to be a team or have them break up. Like, this tease has been going on for far too long. And again, I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of the will they won't they in professional wrestling. I'm like, we can just break up amicably. Nobody needs to turn heel to break up a tag team. Like, come on now. But the last thing that we're going to talk about is, because as soon as this match is over, we cut backstage with Javon and Wes ready to throw down again. Ava is yelling at them to get it together. And then, we are interrupted by Mr. RVD himself, Rob Van Dam. He's like, you know what? I know what I want to do next week. You and you. See you guys next week. And I'm just like, oh, RVD being as mysterious as ever. What do I think is going to be is another guest referee, but I was like, sure, but I feel like we've done a lot of those recently. Now, if you give me a ladder match between these two for whatever reason, like, I'm here for it. But who knows? Wes versus Javon is slated for next week, so I'm just like, okay. Didn't think we were going to get it so soon, but hopefully this is what kicks off their feud, which I'm already excited. This is going to be a fun show. But that brings us to the end of this week's NXT. So what we're going to do is give our empanada ratings and just our final thoughts to all this before going off for the evening. This definitely was a big improvement from the last 2 NXT things that we saw, which was Halloween Havoc and then the Go Home show last week. Like, holy crap. This was so much better, and it definitely has me excited to tune in next week with NXT. So I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, I'm gonna give this a solid 7.5 out of 10 empanadas, which is what I give normally, like a B or semi B plus. I thought this was a really strong show, definitely better than last week. I do have some questions and annoyances as discussed in this episode, but you have me sold with a lot of things. So NXT, good job of buying me back in. Not to say I was going to leave before, but you definitely heard, I guess, everything that was being said, and it's like, all right, let's make a course correction. So NXT, good job this week. Macho, what about you? How many empanadas do you give NXT this week?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I thought this show was pretty great. I thought it was way better than Halloween Havoc. I think this is one of those rarities where there was so much good that the bad, like the Charlie and Lexus match or the main event tag, like those were probably the worst parts of the show, but everything else was phenomenal. The Zaria's match was great. The progression of like the 5-on-5 with the women next week. I love the Tatum and Wendy match. Like, what a great way to start off the show. I really, really enjoyed those moments.
I agree with you there. I thought this was a fun show, and it definitely has me. I'm excited to see what next week's show at the ECW Arena is going to look like, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Macho, once again, thank you for being here tonight. Will wanted to be here, but he is excited that once the play is done and over with, he will be with us officially going forth for NXT. So I'm super excited.
Can I just say one thing?
Go for it.
To all the Latinos and Hispanics out there, Feliz Dia de los Muertos. Today's a pretty special day for a lot of Latino cultures. I wear this flag. I have it on my arm. I have it in my heart. We don't typically celebrate this. There is a small cluster of us that celebrate this on the island. If you live on the island, you know that in Morro, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, that we have a big celebration there. A lot of people don't know that because if you don't live there, it's not something that we showcase. There's a big, people walk around the cemetery, that's what, where El Morro is. But this is a day to celebrate, to remember, your relatives that you lost. I have lost people this year, my grandmother, and I just couldn't wait today. I couldn't wait for today. So all he is out there, enjoy this day and just remember the people that came before you.
Well said, my friend. Well said. So that is going to be it for us here this week at NXTilosos. Next week, we are going to not have a review because schedule-wise and plus with whatever happens on Tuesday, I think will be the biggest talking point because election is here. So since NXT is being aired on Wednesday, we're just going to be going dark for NXT next week, but we will be back the following week, and stay tuned to our social medias because me, Macho, and will probably be throwing lots of things on the social medias, talking about it on our own platforms. And also the group chat between the three of us is about to get on and popping depending on what happens next week. But I'm super excited. But we will be back the following week as we head into the beginning of the end of the year with what's left of November. So I am super excited to do so. But until then, we will see you guys again in 2 weeks. And as always, from all of us here at the BC WrestlePod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay biconic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will catch you in 2 weeks for NXT, but until then, sayonara, adios, and catch you later.